The fact that a sip tastes similar to the blind taste conducted in relation to the Pepsi challenge will yield different results, and if people are to drink a larger amount. This is due to the fact that our taste buds often prefer the sweeter product, Pepsi, when having a sip. However, when it comes to an entire can or case, the less sweet product, Coca-Cola, is more often the preferred choice. Thus, when conducting an experiment like the above, it is important to decide whether the results of a sip or the intake of a large amount is of interest. Op.cit. p. 159. In relation to neuromarketing, these results prove that consumers do not always know what they want, even when asked. When asked through blind taste, consumers actually preferred new Coke to the original. However, when the product was launched, consumers were not interested in buying it. Quite contrarily, they protested against it. Furthermore, the experiment underpins the importance of marketers knowing what they actually want to test. According to Marty, combining acute accent Nez, author of The Consumer Mind, 2012, consumers' minds can be differentiated within 4 categories: between what they think, what they say, what they do, and what they feel. Marty, combining acute accent Nez, 2012, p. 5. Marty, combining acute accent Nez, emphasizes that a critical point of traditional marketing research is that consumers contradict themselves, saying what they want, but doing what they feel. IBID. Thus, Marty, combining acute accent Nez, argues that neuromarketing will help marketers acquire more objective information from and about consumers than through use of traditional marketing tools such as surveys and interviews. Marty, combining acute accent Nez, proposes that the most efficient way to apply neuroscience in relation to marketing is through a combination of qualitative, quantitative, and neuroscience research, as they hereby will complement and support each other, yielding the richest information possible. Op.cit. p. 6. 4.5.1 Adding neuroimaging to the Pepsi Challenge. Inspired by the Pepsi Challenge, a group of scientists set out to research how behavioral preferences for food and beverages could be affected by sensory variables, 50 hedonic states, expectations, semantic priming, and social context. Almost 30 years after the original Pepsi Challenge test, McClure et al. 2004, p. 379. 67 participants took part in the study, which included a combination of simple taste tests, both blind and semi-blind tests, as well as event-related fMRI scans. Op.cit. Pages 379-380. The scientists wanted to investigate the behavioral and neural responses to the 2 types of cola when these were presented anonymously and when participants knew which brand they were tasting. Furthermore, they wanted to investigate whether a correlation between expressed behavioral preference and neural response was found when measured by fMRI scans. Op.cit. p. 380. Before the taste test, the participants were asked about their preference of Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, which were referred to as their standard preferences. Participants showed strong preferences when asked which kind of cola they preferred, and seemed eager to prove that they were able to taste the difference. Op.cit. p. 385. The 67 participants were divided into 4 groups with 18 people in each. Each group was exposed to taste tests and fMRI scans. 2 groups did anonymous taste tests, tasting 3 pairs of unlabeled cups, each including a Pepsi sample and a Coca-Cola sample. This taste test was repeated after several months, with 15 pairs of unlabeled cups, to check its reliability. Op.cit. Pages 380-381. The other 2 groups completed semi-anonymous taste tests, including 3 pairs of cups. For one group, 1 cup in each pair was labeled Pepsi. For the other group, 1 cup was labeled Coca-Cola. However, both cups contained the same product. Op.cit. Pages 382-383. The preferences given throughout the taste test were termed behavioral preferences. Subsequently, fMRI scans were conducted to investigate potential responses in relation to brand information. The fMRI scans were conducted in a similar manner to the taste tests. The 2 first groups would see yellow or red flashes of light before receiving a sip of either Pepsi or Coca-Cola, whereas the other 2 groups saw either one of the cola labels or flashlights before receiving the sip of cola. All samples were the same cola as the label shown to the participants. Op.cit. Pages 380-381. 51. The results from the anonymous taste tests divided the participants almost equally into 3 groups preferring either Pepsi, Coca-Cola, or having no clear preference. This equal division was well aligned with the division found through the standard preferences. Op.cit. p. 381. However, When comparing these results with those of the semi-anonymous taste tests, differences occurred. These results, accordingly, showed that brand knowledge does in fact affect participants' behavior and preferences. Furthermore, it appeared that the brands had different effects on participants' behavior. Especially the effect of the Coca-Cola brand was evident. Participants reacted much more positive towards the Coca-Cola sample after seeing the logo, compared to the samples provided after red or yellow lights. This brand effect was insignificant in relation to Pepsi. Thus, cultural influences seem to have a strong influence, especially concerning Coca-Cola, op.cit. p. 385. Based on the results of this study, the scientists proposed the hypothesis that, in judging stimuli based on multifaceted sensory and cultural influences, independent brain systems appeared to cooperate to bias preferences, IBID. The above experiment is a great example of the power of brand equity. When consumers consume a product with a strong brand, they may in fact be consuming brand expectations more than they are consuming the product itself. Genko et al. 2013, p. 144. This idea may sound unlikely if you adhere to the rational consumer model underlying traditional marketing research as described in section 4.1. However, if you adhere to the intuitive consumer model, which underlies neuromarketing, then the coherence seems natural, IBID. After having established the context of neuromarketing in which this thesis exists, the next chapter will lay out the methodological framework. 52.5 Methodology. This chapter reviews the analytical backbone of our thesis and sets out with the objective of introducing and reviewing the tools and methods of critical discourse analysis, henceforth, CDA, and the concepts of Tolman's model of argumentation, which will constitute the framework of our analysis and discussion. The most optimum investigation for testing the neuromarketing claims put forward by Lindstrom and the scholars from the field of neuroscience would naturally be to copy their experiments and research within the setting of neuroscience. However, we, as researchers within the academic field of communication, have neither the skills, tools, nor knowledge to conduct such research and will instead rely on our own field of expertise, language and communication. Thus, CDA will function as our tool in uncovering the different attitudes of neuromarketing and hereby shed light on the practice from different communicative perspectives and practices. The below chapter will cover our research tools, concepts, and academic approach in establishing the practice of neuromarketing. 5.1 Critical Discourse Analysis. As we are in need of an analytical approach that will help us uncover the claims, attitudes, and arguments of neuromarketing, CDA will constitute our analytical entry point to a discussion hereof. CDA is not as such a specific direction of research, as it does not have a unitary theoretical framework, but rather, it is an interdisciplinary field with various conceptual and theoretical frameworks that are closely related. Van Dijk 2001, p. 353. Dependent on the aim of a given CDA, the possible frameworks are many and may be theoretically and analytically quite diverse yet. However, most kinds of CDA will look into the specific discourse structure, the textual dimension, the social dimension. The use of clichés and notions such as power and interests are often deployed as well. op.cit. Pages 353-354. CDA will constitute our analytical entry point to a discussion of neuromarketing, and below the concepts and tools related to our CDA are introduced, while Fairclough's three-dimensional model is treated in detail. As Fairclough's work covers a rather extensive list of concepts, we will below only include those that will form part of our analysis. 53.5.1.1 Defining discourse. Discourse has its origins in disciplines such as linguistics and semiotics, and at its most general, a discourse can be described as any system of signs, spoken or written, or even an image. Burr 2003, pages 64-66. According to Parker, discourses do not simply describe the social world, they categorize it, they bring phenomena into sight. Once an object has been elaborated in a discourse, it is difficult not to refer to it as if it were real. Discourses provide frameworks for debating the value of one way of talking about reality over other ways. Parker 2004, p. 252. Here, Parker emphasizes an important connection between discourse and reality, underpinning the link to social constructionism and the active role of language in the construction of the social world. Discourse is therefore not an entity we simply can define independently. We can only arrive at an understanding of it by analyzing the associated relations. Fairclough 2010, p. 3. The relationship between language and society hereby becomes dialectical of nature. Language and society affect one another and thus make discourse an important type of social practice, as a discourse both reproduces and is shaped by other social practices and relations. Fairclough 2001, p. 19. When discourse analysts read texts, they must thus continually place what they read in questions marks. Why was this said? Why those words? And where and how do the connotations of the words conform to different ways of talking about the world? Hereby, urging a strong reflexivity upon the researcher, Parker 2004, p. 252. Fairclough uses the concept of discourse in several ways. At the most abstract level, he refers to it as language used as social practice and the kind of language used within a specific field, and thirdly, in his most concrete notion, a way of speaking which gives meaning to experiences from a particular perspective. Phillips, Jorgensen 2002, pages 66-67. Hereby, Fairclough defines discourse as the choice of using language in a particular way instead of another. It is the use of language structured in different patterns, used in different social settings and social domains. Thus, a discourse in this thesis will be regarded as a certain structure of language used in a specific social context. 5.1.2 Fairclough's critical discourse analysis. Several different approaches to CDA exist. However, this thesis adheres to Fairclough's notion of the concept, as it represents one of the most developed approaches and 54 methods within the discipline. op.cit. p. 60. Put in the most simplistic way, CDA offers theories and methods for the empirical study of the relations between discourses and social and cultural developments in different social domains. IBID. According to Fairclough, CDA differs from a general discourse analysis in not just describing discursive practices but also showing how discourse is shaped by relations of power and ideologies, and the constructive effects discourse has upon social identities, social relations and systems of knowledge and belief, neither of which is normally apparent to discourse participants. Fairclough 1992, p. 12. A key aspect in Fairclough's approach is hereby that discourse is an important type of social practice, which both reproduces and changes identities, knowledge and social relations, and in turn also is shaped by the same factors. Phillips, Jorgensen 2002, p. 65. The social practice in the context of our thesis is fairly complex, as it embraces both the social practice of marketing and the commercial interest hereof, as well as the neuroscientific practice, which entails a high degree of conventionalism. To further advance a notion of the social context in which our empirical data exist, we have introduced the neuro and marketing of neuromarketing, cf. Chapter 4, and thus the different approaches to neuromarketing and the respective context, commercial or academic, in which they exist. CDA is thus not just the analysis of discourse itself. Rather, it is an analysis of dialectical relations between discourse and other elements, cutting across conventional boundaries between disciplines such as linguistics, politics, and sociology, hereby making CDA an interdisciplinary type of analysis, or as Fairclough refers to it, transdisciplinary. Fairclough 2010, p. 4. An essential concept in Fairclough CDA is the notion of power, which also is regarded as the critical aspect of CDA. This critical aspect of the analysis seeks to produce interpretations and explanations of areas of social life and hereby generate a better understanding of how societies work and produce both beneficial and detrimental effects. Fairclough 2003, p. 203. Thus, the main aim of CDA is to investigate the links between language use and social practice. Phillips, Jorgensen 2002, p. 69. 55. 5.1.3 Defining power in discourse. Fairclough introduces two types of power in relation to CDA, power in discourse and power behind discourse. For both types of power, Fairclough argues that a specific person or grouping cannot hold power, since power is won through social struggles and thus also can be lost. Fairclough 1994, p. 43. Power in discourse is concerned with the relational power among participants. When one participant holds the power, he will try to control and constrain the contributions of the powerless participant in what Fairclough refers to as an unequal encounter. The powerful participant can then constrain the contents, relations, or subjects. op.cit. p. 46. In relation to power in discourse, Fairclough also introduces the notion of hidden power, especially in regard to the mass media, which involves the sharp division between producers and interpreters. Fairclough 2001, p. 41. Within mass media, the nature of the power relations enacted is often not clear, hereby representing reasons for seeing it as involving hidden relations of power. The discourse producers exercise power over consumers in that they have sole producing rights and therefore can determine what is included and excluded. op.cit. Pages 41.46. Here, Fairclough also pays special attention to causality and to who is represented as causing what to happen, who is represented as doing what.